My nightmare stepmother was driving drunk and caused the death of my twin sister, and I told her that I wished she died instead. My stepmother and I had never seen eye to eye, not least of the reasons being that she was an alcoholic who happened to be my father's affair partner. She drinks perhaps 4 times a week regardless of whether or not we are in the house, and has a tendency to get very aggressive when drunk. She has tried to lay hands on me before while drunk, but I was able to defend myself. Last year in September, my twin sister and I had a volleyball game at school. My dad was out of town, so our stepmom had to come pick us up. She arrived an hour late because she took a nap while drunk and forgot about us as soon as we got in the car. I could tell that she was a little tipsy, and I insisted we get out and call a cab. My stepmother persisted, however, saying she was fine and had done this many times before. We could protest further. She started going on a rant about how we disturbed her nap while driving off. Long story short, she ran a stop sign at an intersection. We got into a horrible accident. Most of that night was a blur, but I remember the last few minutes before the crash. I was hospitalized for weeks, but my twin sister passed away that night. I can't describe how I feel. I lost my best friend who I shared everything with. My sister knew exactly how I felt about everything because we experienced life together. Now I constantly feel like I'm a zombie. I often think about ending my own life because living is unbearable without my sister. Well, last night my stepmom made a special dinner for her birthday. After the accident, I stopped eating dinner with the rest of my family. It just feels wrong to eat without my sister at the table. So I eat alone in my room. Well, my dad insisted I eat with him downstairs. I protested, but he begged me. Dinner started off normally. My stepmom announced to my brothers 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and I bet she was pregnant. My brothers were really happy and asked for the gender of the baby. My stepmom excitedly said that it was a girl. My brothers kept talking about how excited they were about getting a younger sister. My stepmom mentioned how they could help decorate her nursery. I looked up and asked her which room would be the nursery. She excitedly said that she was going to use my twin sister's room. She mentioned how she already started removing things from her room in the morning and putting them in the attic. I asked her why she didn't bother telling me before she went ahead and started moving my sister's stuff. It was a big deal to me because aside from me, no one has been in her room since she passed. Sometimes when I miss her, I sit in her room to feel closer to her, and some nights I fall asleep in her room. My stepmom got really defensive. She said that I needed to accept that she was having a baby and needed the empty room. I told her that I understood that she was pregnant, but a heads up would have been nice before she started removing things from my sister's room. She looked at me and said that she didn't need to tell me anything because she was the mother of the household. She said she was doing what was best for the interest of her baby and she didn't need my negativity. I stayed silent trying to tune her out, but I snapped when she mentioned how I needed to accept my sister's death and move on. She said something along the lines of, your twin passed away and you need to accept that. It's hard, but you've got your father, your brothers, and plus you're getting a new sister who you can build an even stronger relationship with. You need to move on because nothing will bring your twin sister back. I knew I was getting angry, so I excused myself and left the table. My dad started yelling about how I was being dramatic and I needed to come back or I'd be grounded. I continued walking away until my stepmom said I didn't understand what her problem was. She couldn't even bother to be happy about my pregnancy, but she was angry about me moving things out of an unoccupied bedroom. I turned around and stared at her in disbelief. My stepmom often acts like my twin sister never existed. An example, 2 months ago I was at Walmart with my dad and stepmom. We were buying a birthday present for my younger brother and they got into a conversation with an older man. I wasn't paying much attention, but the old man asked my dad how many kids he had. My dad said he had 4 kids, but my stepmom responded by saying 3. She does stuff like that all the time, which drives me insane. Anyway, I started going off on her and she sat there quietly. I mentioned how she's been the cause of every major traumatic event in my life. I reminded her that she knowingly started sleeping with a married man she knew he had a wife and kids, but she didn't care. She broke up my family, sending my mom into a deep depression, which ultimately led her to move away. Then I reminded her that she was too preoccupied with ranting about how we disturbed her nap on top of being under the effing influence, which ultimately led to a car accident that had me hospitalized for weeks. And I lost my twin sister because of her carelessness. The only way she got off scot-free is because dad and her have some connections with law enforcement, and since we were the only ones hurt, she avoided legal punishment. I told her that she had no right to just take things out of my sister's room, and I wasn't angry about her new baby, but the fact that she started boxing and removing stuff from my sister's room without even telling me in advance. Then finally, I told her that it was cruel of her to tell me to move on from the traumatic death of my twin sister. She argued back that the accident happened and I was living in the past. She said everything happens for a reason and God works in mysterious ways. I straight up asked her if she thought that my sister's death could not have been avoided, and she responded by saying it was just unlucky fate. My stepmom then told me that I made her feel like I wanted her to die. Instead, I just stayed silent and she kept asking me if she was correct. I turned to walk away and my stepmom grabbed my arm. I asked her to let go and she kept saying, you want me dead, don't you? I stayed silent again, but she kept repeating it. I eventually got mad and truthfully told her that my life would have been easier that way. She started crying and my dad called me heartless. I apologized a few minutes later, but my dad snapped and asked me to leave my stepmom alone. Since then, my dad has been giving me the silent treatment while my stepmom just avoids me.